Eskom will implement stage 6 load shedding from midday until further notice. The power utility says the grid remains under severe strain. This has again been blamed on numerous breakdowns of power stations. Generating units which were being serviced have also not come back online within the expected timeframes. Joining us now is Lungile Mashele, energy expert. Lungile, good afternoon. Stage 6, unpack for us, what does this all mean?
Good afternoon and thank you for having me. Stage 6 basically means for most residents, you will be load shed for up to 4 hours at a time. Eskom is requesting all municipalities as well as itself to cut back on 6,000 megawatts of demand. So that basically means that for the large part of today, as well as most possibly tomorrow and Friday, up to 4 hours at a time and quite possibly 3 times a day. That's about 12 hours without electricity on any given day. So that's half the day that we will be out.
Well, before we even talk about what it means to industry, Eskom has come out and said until further notice. Normally, when an announcement hits the airwaves, they will tell us that it is for a day or two or for a number of hours. Should we be concerned?
So we should definitely be concerned. And, part of the statement that they released, or the communication rather, indicates that they need to preserve the generation that they do have, or the most likely diesel that they will be using. And this indicates to a problem specifically for the evening peak, that if they were to use this diesel during the day, most likely in the evening we would have to get to stage 8 load shedding. So I assume this is to circumvent that, which is, a good thing, but on the whole, it indicates to larger problems. I say most likely on Friday we will be able to step down to a lower stage because obviously over the weekend there is reduced demand, industry is closed, commerce is closed, and they will then have time to then work on preserving the demand for the following week, or additional capacity for next week rather.
Now, we do know that there are a number of units that are under service. A number of units have not come back from service as expected. Is this what has led to the challenges that we're facing now?
It definitely is. I think it was 2 weeks ago, the outgoing group executive for generation at Eskom alluded to a number of issues, and one of the issues that he pointed out to was a lack of proper project management, also mentioning how there's outage slips, which is what has happened now, that units are not coming back on time. There are other issues related to a lack of maintenance, and then, he also mentioned a lack of skills, lack of contractors. So it's a myriad of issues, but what Eskom has told us up to now is that there just has been outage slip, and this has not been monitored.
Now, for the last 12 months, at the very least, we've continually been having blackouts, and the conversations remain the same. Do you see a long-term solution to these current challenges?
So we need to be very frank with ourselves. The last year of load shedding since the start of 2022 has been the worst on record. In fact, it is more than what we've had cumulatively in the last 8 years. Various announcements have been made by government in terms of what their interventions are. However, these are not short-term solutions. These are certainly going to take a long time. Perhaps we're looking at about 3 or 4 years, if not more. In the short term, solutions around giving Eskom the required tariff that it needs in order to run its plant in an efficient manner, over and above the maintenance that it needs to do. This needs to be a big conversation going forward, as well as the reliability maintenance. Anything else, we're basically lying to ourselves, because that is mid to long-term planning.
Now, there's obviously been conversations around independent energy operators coming onto the grid. How soon is that likely to happen? In fact, is there any movement in that regard currently?
So we've had them coming in since 2011, your independent power producers. Where we find ourselves now is that we've had numerous IPP bid windows that have been issued, especially in the renewable energy sector. However, they have limitations. They are typically not available in the evenings. They are typically not available during certain periods. And especially because we're having these increased rains as well, we're also seeing that your solar, for instance, will not be available. So we cannot hinge all of our expectations or hopes on independent power producers. Ultimately, Eskom has a share of this burden, and they need to do all they can do to fix it.
Now, finally, a few months ago, we reported that countries like Botswana had excess capacity. Is this an option for us to buy power from some of our neighbors?
You know, it was an idealistic plan, primarily because countries like Botswana promised that they can sell excess capacity and on weekends only. They didn't say any random day, which is what we're currently experiencing now. So we can't even call on that at the moment. Countries like Zambia indicated that they have an excess, but we know very well now that they have gone into a bit of a deficit, them along with Zimbabwe, because of the low dam levels on the Kariba currently. So they need all their capacity also. So it basically leaves us with very few options. Mozambique is perhaps one option, but again, these are contracts that should have been concluded a long time ago. But it's been almost 5 months since those announcements were actually made, and we haven't seen any headway since.
All right, I'm just going to very quickly, before we close off, come back to the issue of the tariffs that Eskom has been pushing for. What would be the implications of a market-related tariff, if you will, if it was permitted?
So what it would basically mean, and there's two things. There's the tariff that Eskom should be receiving, but there's also the liquidation of their regulatory clearing accounts. Combine those two, and you basically are able to give Eskom a cost-reflective tariff where it will be able to carry out its operations, maintain its plant, run reliability maintenance, and therefore ensure that we do not have load shedding going forward. As things stand, it doesn't matter what mechanisms we put through. For as long as Eskom does not have money to operate its plant, no intervention will actually come right.
Lungile Mashele is an energy expert, unpacking to us what the implications of that stage 6 load shedding means as it's just been implemented this hour by Eskom.